This is Regional at Best. It's an album by the band 21 Pilots that I enjoy quite a lot. However, it's technically not an album by 21 Pilots. Except it is, but you won't find it on any of their official platforms. I've heard the whole thing off third-party uploads on YouTube, but I assure you that it's very much an important part of their discography, despite the fact that, it seems so unimportant they don't sell it anymore. Seriously, it has an official track list, an official release date, it had live shows to promote it, and official artwork, all things that happen with official albums. And yet, lead singer Tyler Joseph, the guy who wrote the thing, doesn't seem to think that it's an album.
Regional Best, the old record that technically doesn't exist.
So, if not album, why album shaped? The answer to that question can be quite short. They got signed. And this is the reason they'll tell you whenever the question comes up.
Regional at Best doesn't exist because it falls right as we were releasing music independently and right when we got signed and we were able to release professionally with a label.
However, I don't think this explanation really covers the full story. The long answer involves talking about the year 2011, in which the band would unknowingly go through massive changes, ones that, while seeming unfortunate at first, turned out to be the very beginnings of the success they would later find. And in the middle of all of it, this peculiar album would be released. Let's go all the way back to the very beginning. It is said that music was invented in 3516 BC by Thomas Music, after he wrote the guitar riff to Smoke on the Water. Okay, Columbus, Ohio, sometime in the mid-2000s. This guy, Tyler Joseph, is only now really getting into music composition. Like, seriously getting into it. You see, despite the fact that he mainly played basketball throughout high school, Joseph suddenly became more and more invested in his musical abilities and interest. He had always been able to sing, he's just one of those people that is annoyingly born with the skill, but he was drawn to writing his own material during his senior year of high school, since it gave him a great avenue to express himself. And this is still the late 2000s, so Joseph would burn his music on CDs and give them to family and friends to listen to once he wrote songs he thought were worth people actually listening to. He also uploaded a few to a now deleted Pure Volume account, and this is what's considered the No Fun Intended EP, which, unlike Regional at Best, actually doesn't really exist. The tracklist for it has been up for debate since it's not like it's got an official release or anything, these were simply demos. For instance, Tyler gave his own sister a CD of his songs, but this tracklist consisted of stuff like Taco Bell Saga, which is essentially a shitpost, and a song called Words, which has sparked a bit of a debate amongst 21 Pilots fans on whether or not we've actually heard it before. Because of this, over the years, No Fun Intended has since morphed into a kind of umbrella name that represents most, if not all, of what Tyler Joseph recorded before forming the band 21 Pilots. Look it up now, and Discogs will tell you that it's a 19-track beast of an album, which includes songs that are clearly recorded off of someone's phone, next to Taco Bell Saga, next to Save. Yeah, when I say it was an avenue for Joseph to express, it was an avenue for Joseph to express. A lot of the thematic mainstays of 21 Pilots music was born from these recordings. Lyrical themes mostly consisted of Joseph's personal mental struggles and also religious angst. Stuff you can still interpret from recent releases, the only difference being that teenage Tyler famously wasn't doing well during this period, and so all of that is far more explicit. A lot of these songs are piano-orientated and carry a lot of drama within them. Considering how they were made, they don't sound professional at all, but what they lack in production, they make up for in personality and relatability. These songs feel like journal entries put to music more than some guy tinkering around with GarageBand on a random afternoon. I've always personally liked Drown and the ending of Taken by Sleep, which is scuffed, the guitars are way too loud, but I still love it. And it's here that we must talk about Chris Sarlee, who is actually kind of underappreciated when it comes to 21 Pilots, at least to non-diehard fans. There's a good chance that without this guy, the band wouldn't have ever formed. Chris first knew of Tyler through a girlfriend, apparently, and the two met at a party. He worked at Guitar Center, which won't come up again, and was trying to build his own studio around that time, and wanted to record stuff with Tyler. Chris heard the songs from No Fun Intended, and they caught his attention in a good way. The idea of 21 Pilots formed between the two of them. Tyler then asked his childhood friend Nick Thomas, who played guitars on a few of the No Fun Intended songs, to join as well, but mainly as a bass player. The three of them moved into a house with a basement as practice space and a loft for a studio. The idea behind the band was solid. Firstly, the material would be written by Tyler Joseph. Both Nick and Chris were fans of the songs he was creating, so it naturally formed that way. The band also didn't have a guitarist from the get-go, and instead would rely on Chris's drumming, Nick's bass, and Tyler's strange ability to play the piano correctly while flailing around like an idiot. The other sound sources would be done through pre-recorded tracks. Some may find that this is cheating, and the band did get backhanded remarks during early live shows, where people would tell them,
"You guys are pretty good for not having a guitarist."
But that brings us to the third and final thing. The live show is the main event. Decided fairly early on, the The main goal of starting 21 Pilots is that their concerts were going to be really good. Starting out with an audience mainly sourced from people Tyler and Nick knew through their church, the band would play shows and sell their recordings on CDs. They stuck out from the local scene, which Nick described as being full of metal bands, so 21 Pilots' very strange version of alt-rock, alt-pop, hip-hop, and reggae was quite unique. The earliest recorded footage of the band is probably their performance at Battle of the Bands in 2009. I bring this up because I wanted to mention two things. Firstly, this performance was done on the 11th of October, which is my birthday. Secondly, this Battle of the Bands was held at the Alrosa Villa, which not only no longer exists anymore, but was also the venue where Dimebag Darrell died. Look up the venue now, and the first thing you get is a Wikipedia article about a shooting that happened there not 5 years before this video was recorded. That's almost as insane as when I found out American Paper isn't sized to day 4. Is that country real, or am I just being gaslit? The band's first album was released later that year. Colloquially known as self-titled, 21 Pilots features 14 new original songs with new lyrics bar the few verses that Tyler borrowed from old material. The biggest difference between this release and anything included on No Fun Intended is definitely audio quality. Nothing on this album sounds scuffed in the way it did before. Despite still being a homemade album, Joseph has more experience, and Salih's input helps with it sounding cleaner this time around. The songwriting and arranging is also much tighter. Just listen to something like Fall Away, where nearly every instrument is a hook in of itself. What is carried over from No Fun Intended is that piano-orientated sound, as well as the heavy thematic drama, which is a given since the subject matter hasn't changed much. There are some deep and personal songs on Self-Titled. Friend Please is a song where Tyler talks with someone considering taking their own life. Implicit Demand for Proof, added with a pen and a car of torture death, continue with the explicit religious angst, and just the way Tyler sings during this period is more dramatic in general. A good way to describe this album is loaded. It's loaded with themes. Each song is 4.5 to 5 minutes long. Tyler goes from softly singing in your head to shouting along with heavy electronic sounds and drums all around him. Every one of them sounds like it could be the final track of the album, apart from maybe Fall Away in the Pantaloon. And it's also a full hour long. It's crazy, mismatched, off-kilter, and not everyone's cup of tea, which is why some people don't like it. But let's not forget about what the band's philosophy is. The live show is the main event.
And then you just go, this is it. So I guess let's pay some company to print, the CDs and have them ready for, people to buy at shows.
If you want to really hear the best versions of these songs, you'd have to catch one of their shows, and that's basically how the band grew their cult following. Chris even gave one of his co-workers at Guitar Center a CD of the band's music, and that guy seemed to like it a lot too, but he's not really important. 21 Pilots spent most of 2009, 2010, and 2011 being a popular underground buzz band that would play basically anywhere. For instance, here's footage of the band playing in an Apple store for some reason. I have no idea why or how this happened, but I'm glad it exists because Tyler messes up Ode to Sleep, and it's pretty funny. That song, Ode to Sleep, first appears on Regional at Best, the very next album, which throughout the band's early history was being written by Tyler. If all went well, a second album would be created once Tyler felt confident that he had 14 new songs that he'd like to put on a disc to sell at shows. Halfway through 2010, the band met Mark Eshelman. He's usually the guy behind the camera, but the fanbase knows him so much that he's basically an unofficial member of the band in the vein of George Martin being a Beatle.
Cut to clip of us playing live music.
And I didn't.
He was the guy who filmed what is unequivocally, basically, the band's crowning achievement, a high they have not reached since. Their cover of Jar of Hearts by Christina Perri with electronica elements and auto-tuned lead vocals. The song was posted to the band's YouTube channel in early 2011, and this was the era of the club anthem. Unfortunately, 2011 is also the year where the band would radically change. Chris Salih talks about a time where he and Tyler actually got into an argument around this period.
A show came up on a college campus that was going to be just like a party. It was all it was going to be. And Tyler and I kind of had this disagreement on whether or not we should play it. And I felt kind of sick to my stomach about playing. It's not even worth it. People are going to be all drunk. But there was that burning desire in us as a band. Is like, we've got to play all the shows we possibly can.
Slight tensions were now being tested within the band itself, and soon change would come. Around this time, Nick got enrolled in a school in North Carolina, a state where he also had family and therefore could stay with them while pursuing higher education. Whereas Chris, in particular, had life things that he needed to take care of. Stuff that wasn't really aided by being in a band that played all the time. He had a car he needed to fix. He had a relationship he wanted to pursue.
Tons of student loan debt. He said, well, bud, I hate to say this, but it might be time to get a full-time job.
All the while, this project is still Tyler Joseph's baby. I mean, yeah, he started it with Chris, but this band is really Tyler's baby. And this guy is nothing if not passionate about the things he does and creates. I mean, this guy was so into basketball at one point, he was skilled in the sport despite being a foot shorter than the average NBL player. That's genuinely impressive. He was passionate about the music, the concerts, the lyrics, the fans, and the video content. The question is whether or not Chris and Nick could match that drive. The touring life isn't for everyone, and while Tyler was still all in, Chris eventually makes the hard decision of leaving the band. His departure was announced via a Facebook post on the 8th of May 2011. Luckily, it was on good terms and no bad blood was spilled. So much so that Chris didn't even leave Tyler out on a lurch. He was about to make an excellent move. Still wanting the band to be a success without him, Chris introduced his own replacement to the band. That replacement just so happened to be that unimportant co-worker at Guitar Center from before. So here on out, it seemed that the trio would be Tyler, Nick, and this new guy named, Josh Dunn, I think. I'm not too sure. He's really new. This stage of the band can be seen in yet another amazing video relic. Coconut, Coconut, Sharks in the Water. A stupid sing-along they did at the Newport Music Hall with Mark the Camera Guy and Chris post leaving the band on the 27th of May 2011. And this video is fascinating considering its strict context.
These jackets are really lame. You guys think that's really your ticket to fame?
When older fans muse on how the band used to be better back when they were just famous locally, I picture this video and nothing else. If this concert happened a month before or a month after it actually did, there'd be something different in this video.
If you go to our YouTube page, we're going to start a new series. We're going to just document the ups and downs of a band.
He's talking about a new web series called Regional at Best. They had booked some gigs which would form a small tour and released the album with a show at New Albany High School. The first episode of the series was released on the 24th of June 2011 and is called Two Piece. Why? Nick Thomas also left the band.
I'm leaving 21 Pilots.
The split was handled carefully from both parties once again, so much so that Nick helped out with merchandise after this, but I do understand that Tyler could have taken it to heart for two big reasons. The first being that this was only a few months after Chris left. I mean, picture it. There were two bandmates that you've been playing with for over a year now, and within the span of 2 months, both of them have left. You're on your own again. Secondly, they're still releasing that new album? That's still a thing. Because of this development, it's not hard to see Tyler Joseph visibly racked with self-doubt throughout the whole of the first episode, as he thinks about how to move forward with the band.
This all basically means is the 21 Pilots is going to be a two-piece. I just wonder if we can put on enough of a show.
They were obviously able to put on enough of a show, and the main reason they could is that while Nick and Chris had left, you couldn't have found a better replacement other than Josh. And I actually do want to talk about him for a second. Okay, listen up. If a random person took a tertiary glance at the band, they would notice one thing. You have Tyler Joseph, who plays piano, ukulele, bass, guitar, vocals, backup vocals, songwriting. He's behind much of the creative direction, which includes the lore, the themes, and the messages of the band. And then you have Josh, who plays drums. Yeah, one of these guys is not pulling their weight, is what you would think if you're an idiot. Josh Dunn is actually a very important part of 21 Pilots purely because of how well he and Tyler get on. He's essentially the Ringo Starr of the band. He's not the guy coming up with the songs, he's not the one people want to interview, but if you watch Get Back, you'll realize everyone gets along with him. Where Tyler is the slightly unstable creative type who might struggle to function, Josh is the mellow, easygoing right-hand man that balances it all out.
Is this weird for you?
No, I love it.
Similar enough to be good friends, but also different enough to create things together. Personally, my first introduction to the band after Stressed Out and Ride broke through was a compilation of funny moments from their interviews. I didn't know a third song from these guys, and yet there was something infectious about the way the two interacted. It's so effortlessly charming the way they never let up on bits they create or how they interact with one another.
When we just like make stuff up, you were always there to make sure I didn't feel stupid. Find a friend who will commit and go with the gag.
Chris and Nick were in a band with Tyler, but Josh is the other half of 21 Pilots. You know what I mean? And it's this version of the band that shows up on Vessel. Vessel won't be created for another 2 years. Tyler didn't know all this while it was happening, and this period for the band would have been fraught.
You know, Tyler and I had that discussion a few months ago, but I need to tell you, it was at least a year of like hard work of like playing those shows where 5 people were there. He said it was hard. It was like Josh and I thought about quitting multiple times in that year.
I think this is to no one. Yeah. This show, wasn't this show to nobody?
There was nobody there.
He had to have felt, and I know he did, feel like we gave up on it.
On the 8th of July 2011, only 2 months after Chris left, Regional at Best, the album, was released. If I were to sum this album up in 2 words, it would be existential rave. Gone are the sweeping pianos from Self-Titled. We've got synths and arpeggios and organs in this one. MIDI, 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 MIDI. Everything MIDI. Songs like Ruby, Slowtown, Lovely, Clear, they all have EDM adjacent drops despite being deeply introspective songs about personal subjects. While this album was just as homemade as the previous one, it does feel somewhat different. That emphasis on electronica is evident of the fact that the making of this album wasn't as organized as Self-Titled.
Waves, it's hard to tell the difference between blood and water these days.
It's been stated before that a few of these songs were basically made by Tyler himself, like how it was during the No Fun Intended days. And maybe Tyler feels that he could have spent a little more time on a few of these songs. Example, the auto-tune on Trees.
Silence in the trees.
What isn't helping here is that because it isn't officially released anywhere, you're only hearing this stuff from third-party sources like YouTube videos. Not exactly the best quality, not quite vinyl. If anyone were to call a 21 Pilots album bad, it would be Scaled and Icy, but if not that, it would be Regional at Best, because a lot of this album is essentially thus. I feel sad. This is the album that Car Radio first appears on. That song features some of the darkest and most introspective lyrics Joseph has ever written, and it too gets down to that sick beat. The scuffed drop on Lovely is amazing. I love that the metallic percussion in Anathema is way too loud. I love how the lyric, "You're an angel," on Ruby makes it sound like Tyler is saying, "You're an Asian." Despite losing the pianos and more acoustic elements from Self-Titled, Tyler's energy is still the same, and the songs still have that explosive nature. They start off small and erupt right in front of you, which greatly reflects the lyrical themes of being emotionally and mentally volatile. Is the production lacking in places? Yes, but I don't care, Kitchen Sink is still an amazing song. While still being impactful, it's softer than the other songs, and has this almost oriental feel because the melody sticks close to the pentatonic scale. I've always considered it to be essentially the band's thesis statement. One's interpretation of art or their own life in general is solely unique to them. No one could put more meaning into your life than you can, and so it's up to you to find that meaning. How? By doing or creating something. Pointless curses, nonsense verses. Create just because, and let the meaning of it come later. It's the purpose of the band's logo and the reason behind Tyler's tattoos. Do stuff randomly with the best intentions? On the 19th of November 2011, the band would once again play the Newport Music Hall, a show they famously sold every ticket to while still being a local independent band. This, of course, got the eyes and ears of labels, and April of next year would have them announce that they signed to Fuel by Ramen. The band was no longer what it once was. By this point, the music Tyler was making was quite different to what he made during No Fun Intended. It was still heavy on the synths, meanwhile the religious angst was less explicit and more thematic. The vibe of Vessel is one I like to call laughing through the pain. Instead of clear and be concerned, you get songs like Migraine and The Run and Go. Songs that surely bop with bright synths and major key centers, but speak of depression, introspection, and mental anguish when it comes to lyrics. The 21 Pilots special. With all of this in mind, you can sort of see why Regional at Best isn't considered canon by Tyler. The long answer is essentially, this album has the misfortune of being sandwiched between 2 other albums that represent 2 different bands. Self-Titled is representative of the trio. Tyler, Chris, Nick playing piano-led alternative rock heavily influenced by their religious upbringing, whereas Vessel is representative of the duo. Tyler and Josh making well-crafted alternative pop music for a wider audience that doesn't mind lyrical matter that's a little dark and personal. Meanwhile, there's Regional at Best, which isn't representative of anything. It's the Growing Pains album, a transitional period where it was clear that things had changed since the beginning, but it was still uncertain of where they'd go from here. Josh had joined the band, but he was still the new guy. The band had signed to a label, but things weren't set in stone. They could still fail. Not to mention that with this signing, their usual business strategy of selling the album at the live shows was no longer relevant. So think back to the lyrics of Kitchen Sink. Tyler's driving force with anything he creates are the intentions he has while he's creating them. Whether it be music, tie-in songs with movies and TV, the logo, the music videos, even the name of the band has lore. Perhaps this album doesn't count because he's unsure of what it means to him. It was written by one band only to be released by another band, and that might not sit that well with him. And I'm serious, I think this album is kind of a sore point for him.
I don't know if that explains why Regional at Best is this weird, like, I don't know, there's a lot of...
All of this is extremely intentional, just not with Regional at Best. You had the first album as the trio. That's who made it. But then you have the major label debut, and then you have the albums tied to the Dema Law. The only album that doesn't really fit at all anywhere is Regional at Best. And because that kind of thing is really important to someone like Tyler, it's probably never coming back. This is not an album by 21 Pilots because it's not clear which version of 21 Pilots released it. Was it the trio, or was it the duo? I guess you decide. That being said, I would like an officially released version of Kitchen Sink.
We'll eat some tacos. Do you have Chipotle here? What's the question? Do you have Chipotle here?